All right, seniors, welcome to our Unit 5 notes. This is the start of Unit 5. We've come through 4 units. Now we're going to start our 5th unit, Unit 5. And just hang on, guys, because you're looking at 3 months, seniors. 3 more months. So this is the start of Unit 5, so get out your notebook. Remember to take very good notes. Your notes are your textbook. Let's pull up our notes right here. And I have a copy of them. This is Unit 5, the Judicial Branch. Make sure you write these things down. You should already know that the Judicial Branch has a job to do, and their job is to judge and interpret the laws. Just like the Legislative Branch had, the Legislative Branch at the federal level is called Congress. The Judicial Branch at the federal level is known as the United States Supreme Court. Now, we have to get your brain going. So, picked on Maddie Berry here. We'll get to that in a minute, but I want to show you a picture from 1985. Are you ready for this? This is a picture from 1985, before you guys were born. Yeah, there, right there is me playing in a high school basketball game for the Trail. Somewhere back there in the background are our cheerleaders, Miss Walls, Miss Chapman. Playing against Golly Bridge. Boy, them shorts were awful short back in those days. Look at the crowd, how packed it was. Standing room only. I think that was the only game I ever got to play in. Now, I'm telling everybody I made this shot. Don't really know if I did or not, but if you're asking me, I made it. 1985. Boy, that was a blast from the past. There was something else that happened in 1985, and that was a United States Supreme Court case. In 1985, TLO versus New Jersey. It was a court case that involved a school. And I'm going to tell you about that case right now because it's kind of the effects of that case, and it kind of shows the effects are still around today, and it shows you how the Supreme Court works. So if you look here, TLO versus New Jersey, this was the girl involved. Her name is her initials because she was underage, so they didn't use her name. TLO was her initials. She was a freshman in a high school in New Jersey in 1985, back when this picture was taken. This was going on. But to help you understand this case better, instead of TLO, I don't know her real name, we're going to use Maddie Berry instead. So we're just going to pretend that this is Maddie Berry at school, because Maddie Berry has been a bad girl. So this is kind of how it went down. Maddie Berry had a couple of her friends with her, and they went to the bathroom together. She had Cassidy Bowles with her and Faith Bales. Yes, that's who she had with her. And they went into the bathroom because girls go to the bathroom in groups, and they hold hands and sing Kumbaya and all of that. The guys go to the bathroom, and there's like a code. You don't even talk to no one. You don't look at anyone. You don't say anything. Girls go into the bathroom. Well, these 3 girls were caught in the bathroom by, let's just say it was Miss Chuka caught them. They were smoking in the bathroom stall. Miss Chuka went in and caught them red-handed. They all tried to take their cigarettes and flush them down the toilet real quick. But Miss Chuka caught them red-handed, so she takes them all down to the office. And she tells Mr. Crouch, our assistant principal, that these 3 young ladies were caught smoking in the bathroom. Which brings to mind that Motley Crue song, "Smoking in the boys' room, smoking in the boys' room." But this was really the girls' room. Well, Mr. Crouch is a smart man, so he did not bring all 3 of these girls into his office together. He brought them all in separately. He brings in Faith Bales first. He sets Faith down. He goes, "Faith Bales, you were caught smoking in the bathroom by Miss Chuka." Well, Faith Bales, she just starts crying right there on the spot. She's like, "Mr. Crouch, I've never been in trouble before. Please don't tell my mommy. Please don't tell my mommy." And Mr. Crouch is like, "Sorry, we're going to suspend you for 3 days. You're out of here, and we have to call your mom and let you know. And Faith Bells, leaves the room. Then Mr. Crouch brings in Cassidy Bowles. Cassidy Bowles sits down, and Mr. Crouch starts to rail on Cassidy Bowles and says, "Hey, Mr. Chuka caught your guy smoking red-handed in the bathroom." And Cassidy Bowles is like, "Yep, I did it. It was me. Sorry about that, Mr. Crouch. I did it. Go ahead and suspend me so I can enjoy my 3 days out of school." Mr. Crouch is like, "We have to suspend you for 3 days and you're out, Cassidy Bowles." And he fills out the paperwork and Cassidy walks out of the office. Then Mr. Crouch brings in our very bad girl, Maddie Berry. Maddie Berry sits down in front of Jason Crouch. Mr. Crouch says, "Maddie, Miss Chuka caught you smoking in the bathroom. It's going to be a suspension for you, 3 days. And Maddie Berry cops the attitude and goes, "Oh, no, it wasn't. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. Miss Chuka was seeing things. I didn't smoke in the bathroom." And Mr. Crouch says, "Look, Maddie, it's Mrs. Chuka's word against yours. She said she caught you red-handed with this cigarette." And Maddie Berry says, "I don't know what Miss Chuka was looking at, but I didn't have a cigarette. The other girls did." Well, it was at this point that Mr. Crouch reaches and would grab Maddie Berry's purse. Now, this is not really a purse. This is actually a backpack. It's mine. It's actually like a man purse. It's not really a man purse. It's a European carry-all, a satchel. But at the end of the story, it's a man purse. So he gets Maddie Berry's purse and says, "Well, let's just see what you got in there, young lady." And he opens up her purse and digs down in there. And he looks and he goes, "Aha! Aha!" And he found a pack of cigarettes right there in Maddie Berry's purse. He said, "Look at that. You got cigarettes in your purse. Lying, aren't you? Maddie Berry, you're a bad girl. Cigarettes right here." And then Mr. Crouch looks again, and he sees some things that are a little bit unusual. He pulls out, ooh, well, that's a big old wad of money. We're not told from the court case how much money Madison Berry had, but it only does say that it was a substantial amount of cash for a high school freshman girl to be carrying around. What else is in here, Mr. Crouch says. Oh, what are these? These look like rolling papers. What else is in here? And Mr. Crouch pulls out the most damning evidence of all. The most condemning evidence for her. Oh. What do you got here, Maddie Berry? Looks like a little bit of marijuana, some Mary Jane, some wacky weed. Yes, Maddie Berry, you're in possession of an illegal substance. And then he pulls out another paper out of her purse. And he goes, "What is this, a list of names?" Mr. Crouch reads them. Caleb McCune. Ooh, Kobe Critchley, Mary Kincaid, Dylan Wilson. What are these names for? Maddie Berry is like, "I don't know." Obviously, Mr. Crouch and the school board is going to throw the book at Maddie Berry. She's been a very bad girl. They have her with sufficient money, rolling papers, a list of names, cigarettes. They even found a lighter. Yeah, a lighter. And some weed. Now, this is really just some oregano, but I was trying to go for the effect. But they throw the book at Maddie Berry. And Maddie Berry, this bad girl, gets expelled from school and is in a juvenile detention center. And they really, really come down pretty hard on her. Now, what happens is, and this is what you got to think of when you start thinking about the United States Supreme Court. The United States Supreme Court never cares if Maddie Berry is guilty or not. They don't ever determine guilt or innocence. The United States Supreme Court, their job is to look at a case and see if there's anything that happened in this case, did it violate that person's constitutional rights? Maddie Berry quickly gets some lawyers together, and her lawyers decide that in this case, Maddie's constitutional right was violated by the assistant principal at this school, and they want to appeal this case in the court system. Now, what constitutional right was Maddie Berry, what constitutional right did Maddie Berry get violated by the assistant principal in this little scenario story? You might say, well, her right to privacy, maybe, okay. But her lawyers focus mainly on Amendment 4. Now, you should know from the second unit, Amendment 4, shut the door. Amendment 4 protects American citizens from illegal what? What was that, Blake Roberts? Illegal searches and seizures of evidence. Did the assistant principal in this case illegally search Maddie Berry's purse? Did this assistant principal in this case illegally seize the items that he found in her purse and take them for evidence? That's what her lawyers were saying. And this case goes through the court system, and it takes about a year, I think. And the United States Supreme Court finally takes Maddie Berry's case and looks at it from the legal standpoint of not if Maddie Berry was guilty or innocent, but was this an illegal search of her purse or not? Did this search violate Maddie Berry's constitutional rights? Now, I know what you're all thinking. Maybe you're all hoping. Maybe you're all hoping that the Supreme Court sided with Maddie Berry on this. Maybe you're hoping that the Supreme Court said this was an invasion of Maddie Berry's privacy, or as I like to say, privacy. And maybe you're thinking that this was an illegal search of her purse. And if you go back to look at Amendment 4, the Amendment 4 itself actually says, it offers American citizens protections from illegal searches and seizures, but you can't forget the next part. Unless there's a search warrant obtained, the search warrant has to be obtained with probable cause, and the search warrant has to be specific. So now I know what you're thinking. Well, the assistant principal, he had no search warrant. So this case in 1985 was incredibly huge from the United States Supreme Court standpoint and the position of schools, because now, see, what you have is a Supreme Court who's going to make a decision or a judgment or an interpretation of how this constitutional law and the rules and laws of a school mesh together. You see, that's the judicial branch's job. So without me boring you any further, I can just get to the result. The United States Supreme Court voted in this case that this was not an illegal search. And you have to understand and go back, and you can read the case, look it up online, TLO versus New Jersey. We're just using Maddie Berry as the guinea pig, but the real freshman in high school then, her initials were TLO in 1985. But the Supreme Court, if you read the case and read their holding or their ruling about it, the Supreme Court ruled that, and if you basically just look at it, they basically rule this way. I'll quit jabbering. You can't have a search warrant in a school because search warrants are something that work out this way. You know, you have to call the magistrate or the judge and get the search warrant. They have to type it all up. They get the search warrant the next day or a day or two. I mean, if you think about what goes on in a school, you know, you can't wait that long on a search warrant. If someone has I hate to say it, but we'll just say if there's a gun in a locker or something like that, you can't wait 2 days before you get a search warrant. I mean, by that time, somebody might get that gun and use it. I mean, so just for the pure safety of the school, you don't have to have a search warrant. All a school official needs is probable cause. And they ruled that the assistant principal in this situation, in this case in 1985, that the assistant principal had probable cause to look through her purse because Maddie Berry lied and said, oh, it wasn't me, remember? I guess the moral of the story is if Maddie Berry would have been like Cassidy Bowles and went like, yeah, it was me, I did it, they probably would have given her 3 days and she'd have been out and would have never been caught with all of these illegal substances. So maybe the real moral of the story is tell the truth. Just tell the truth. The truth will set you free. But school officials, according to TLO versus New Jersey, 1985, ruling by the United States Supreme Court, only need probable cause to search your purse, your backpack, your locker, your car while it's on school property, and your person. That's not my ruling. That's the ruling of the United States Supreme Court. And you know, the United States Supreme Court is like the great and powerful Wizard of Oz. You know, when the great and powerful Wizard of Oz has spoken. When the Supreme Court makes a ruling, boom, put a stamp on it. It's final. They've spoken. And that case was from 1985. Now, Maddie Berry is not really a bad girl. Everyone knows that. But we were just picking on her to show you what this case was like way back in those days when I was in high school playing in those really short shorts in a basketball game. I told you all that because that's how the United States Supreme Court works. They are looking at constitutional law. Now, the court system, obviously, and I have another part of our activation here called sequestered ogres. The court system is actually, you know, we already know that there's civil court for cases involving money, property. There's criminal court for people who've been involved in committing crimes. And, you know, there's the constitutional part of the laws that the Supreme Court is worried about, you know, and how constitutional rights mesh with the other laws and what is the interpretation and how it relates to the Constitution in that certain situation. So sequestered is a big term. When I was first married, and we have to go back to this is another story. I hope you guys get bored watching these videos. This one is a long one too. You go back to 1991. That's the days of Fresh Prince. Pastels ruled the world. Yeah. Oh, the 90s. Love the 90s. But there was a man in Huntington who was accused of murdering his wife. They found her wrapped in garbage bags and thrown in a dumpster. Her body was in a dumpster behind a Holiday Inn in Huntington. Well, they ended up, having enough evidence that pointed towards the husband. So they arrested the husband. At this point, I have to decide if I'm using his name or not. I mean, he's dead now, so I don't know if it would matter. We'll make up an alias name. How's that? So they arrested the husband, and we'll say that the man's name was Fred. Okay? Fred just came to mind. His name was Fred. Okay? Now, Fred was a well-known person in the community of Huntington. Okay? And Fred was somebody who owned a business there. He was involved in the Lions Club, Boy Scouts, involved in the local church there. I mean, everyone knew this family and knew this man. He had money, and he was a person that everyone knew and was associated with. Now, part of the things that you guys will understand as we look at this unit in the judicial branch, but you already know that an accused person has a right to a fair trial by a jury of his peers. And sometimes, in a high-profile murder case like this, it's very hard to get a jury selected. And the actual term for a jury selection is called voir dire. I don't know if I probably mispronounced that, but it's a French word. But it's the process of selecting a jury, a fair jury. It was really hard for the people in Cabell County to get a jury of partial, unbiased jurors who did not know this man and know this family because he was so well known. So what the judge had to do, and this is what a lot of places did back then, a lot of the courts, county courts, what they did was they basically spun the wheel and looked at another county and went, Fayette County, we'll select our jury from Fayette County. That's where I got involved because my wife and I had been married for a year. We were nearing our first wedding anniversary, and she got called for jury duty. We tried to get her out of it. She went to see the judge. She needed to work, couldn't miss work. But basically the bottom line was, nope, it's your duty as an American citizen. You got to serve on this jury when you're called. You're called, and she was on jury duty. But the Cabell County prosecutors could not get an impartial jury in Cabell County, so they came up to Fayette County and selected their jury for the murder trial in Cabell County. And yes, you can probably guess what happened. My wife was selected as one of those 14. They used 12 jurors, 2 alternates. One of those 14 people was my wife. And they sequestered them, which means they took them and picked them all up, took them all down to Cabell County, put them in a hotel, and kept them there, isolated from the world and their families, the whole time this murder trial went on, which lasted for like a month. So I had very little this was before cell phones and all that. So I think once a day, maybe she got to call me, I remember. I think it lasted a month. So I think one of the weekends they allowed the jurors' family members to come down and visit them. So I went down for a weekend and got to visit, my wife. But she was sequestered in a murder trial as a jury member in 1991 or 1990 on the day of our first wedding anniversary. So we weren't even together on our first wedding anniversary because she's involved as a juror in this murder trial. Okay? Now, this trial lasted for 3 months, or not 3 months, but 3 weeks, over 3 weeks. And finally, it came time for the jury to deliberate on whether or not this man, Fred, actually killed his wife or not. And of course, there's 12 members to a jury with 2 alternates, so the jury goes into the deliberation room by themselves, only 12 people. So these 12 people were there, and they're discussing whether or not they had 2 things ordered to them by the judge. Was Fred guilty of murdering his wife? Yes or no? And if he was guilty, what's his sentence going to be? Is he going to get life in prison with no possibility of parole? That's called life with no parole because we don't have the death sentence in West Virginia. Or does he get life in prison with mercy, which means after so many years he would have a chance to come up for parole. After 20 years, I think he would have a chance for parole. That's what they had to decide, those 2 things. They're in there for hours, and there's 12 of them. And in case you didn't know how a jury works, they all have to be in agreement, all 12. It's not like majority rules or nothing. No, they all have to agree, all 12. So they're in there for hours, debating whether or not this man was, guilty or not, and whether or not he should get a life sentence with no mercy and no chance to parole, or life sentence in jail with mercy, which means he could be eligible for parole. I think it was pretty quick that they realized that this man, Fred, was guilty. All the evidence pointed to him, so that no one in the room had a problem with the verdict of guilty. But where they really come down to haggling over was whether or not his sentence should be life in prison forever, no mercy, or life in prison with a chance for parole. That's where they started to really disagree, because some people in the jury were like, he doesn't deserve mercy. Look what he did to his wife. And then other people in the jury were like, everybody deserves mercy. Everybody deserves, a second chance. And that's what they were haggling over. And, after being down there for a month away from your families, finally some of the jurors, and my wife were included, they were like, okay, we just want to go home. We want to get out of here. So if y'all are not going to change your mind, and my wife was one of the ones that said no mercy. Yeah, in jail forever, don't ever get out. That's what she would do, the same thing. She would have no mercy. She has no mercy for me either. If I get hurt, it's always like, were you hurt playing or did you get hurt working? If you get hurt working, I'll give you some sympathy. But if you get hurt playing, then you don't deserve any sympathy at all. Love you, honey. I was just playing. But my wife and some of the others had to change their mind. They wanted to get out of there and go home, and they could tell that the other people weren't going to change their minds. So they gave in and said, hey, life with mercy is his sentence. He can be eligible for parole in 20 years if he wants. That's fine. Let's go home. And they delivered their verdict. And they delivered their verdict to the judge and in the courtroom. And Fred was taken away to serve his sentence of life in jail. But he was going to be eligible for parole in 20 years, which put it somewhere around 2010, which I had so much fun that year because every time my wife would get aggravated with me or something, and she would jump on to me about something, I'd be like, guess who gets out on parole this year? He knows where you live. He's going to be coming for you. Of course, by this time, Fred was 80 years old. He would have been 80-some years old. I don't think he would have been able to come after anybody. But that's a wild story, that's what happened to my wife and myself on our first-year anniversary. But juries today, here's how the court system will do it today. They found this out because, that trial cost Cabell County a lot of money because they paid hotel rooms, meals for all of those jurors every day. What they do now is they found that it's a lot cheaper. Instead of sequestering a jury, they just go have the trial in another county. And they'll just bring the lawyers and the person to that county courthouse and have the trial there rather than sequester the jury. But that's what the word sequester means, to be taken away, and that's what happened to my wife when she had her experience with jury duty. The ogre part of this, you have to understand that one of the things that you can do is that you can appeal your case. And just remember, I told you in here before, the court system is like Shrek, because Shrek is an ogre. And I'm an ogre, and ogres have layers. I like you, Shrek. Those are great movies. But ogres have layers. And the court system is like ogres. It's like an onion, it has layers to it. So, you have your county courthouse, you have your appellate court system, you have your state Supreme Court, you have your federal district courts, and you have at the top of the ladder is the United States Supreme Court, like the great and powerful Wizard of Oz, the final stepping stone. You can't appeal nowhere after the Supreme Court makes a decision. There's no Supreme Court of the galaxy or anything like that. The Supreme Court's decision is final. Boom, over with. They're at the top of the ladder. And that's how the Supreme Court works a little bit. Now we have to talk about some of our notes. So we just spent 30 minutes and didn't take a note. I'm sorry, guys. I tell you what, if you want to pause this and go take a bathroom break, go eat a pizza, go watch a Netflix episode, and then come back to it, feel free. I guess that's the beauty of remote learning. Okay, you're back. EQ number 1. It says, what does equal justice under law, what does that quote actually mean? I put a picture right here of the United States Supreme Court building. It's located in D.C. I don't know if you can see this or not, but right there, carved in marble above those pillars, if I can get this to focus, right there it is. Equal justice under law. It's carved in marble, guys, right there on the Supreme Court building. What does it mean? Simply means this in America. All U.S. citizens are considered equal and protected by rule of law. No one, not Fred, not me, not anybody. No one is above the law. And that's what that saying means, and that's why it's carved above the Supreme Court building. To always remember that we are all protected by rule of law, we're considered equal, no one is above the law. Now, EQ2 asks a pretty important question, and remember, you can pause this video at any time to copy these down, but why is obeying law so important? Hopefully, that's a given. So pause that, and you can write that down. Without laws, anarchy would happen. You know, there's that word, anarchy. Teenagers love that. I don't know why. You know why? Well, I know why. It's pretty simple. Let me tell you. I'll explain it to you. Teenagers love anarchy. You know what anarchy is? No laws. No rules. Teenagers hate rules. They don't like it, so that's why you always see these rebel teenagers going, anarchy rules, man. Okay, that's because it's no rules. But, you know, true anarchy is not, well, I'm just going to get to stay up as late as I want, man, and I'll get to play whatever video games I want. That's not anarchy. Anarchy is lawless, no laws. I mean, in a true anarchy situation, it's survival. And you really wouldn't like an anarchy because you might die, you know? Several years back teaching this class, everybody used to be fans of The Walking Dead. That's the show, the zombie apocalypse show. And now it seems like your generation, you seniors now don't really watch The Walking Dead. I don't know. But it was really a big, huge hit, you know, 10 years ago. But that's anarchy, guys. You know, the whole premise of that, the zombie apocalypse hits, you know, society structure breaks down, there's no rules, there's no government, there's no law, and that's anarchy. But if you think about the show, I mean, it's survival, and the real enemies aren't the other zombies. The real enemies are the other humans who are trying to kill you and take what they can get from you to survive. They want what you have. And it's really a show about struggling with that nature of, you know, what's right and what's wrong, but yet you got to do what you can do to survive, and there's no government, no rules. It's anarchy. It's not fun. I guess maybe here's another thing y'all can relate to. The Purge movies. Yes, you know, for one night during the year, you know, there are no laws. It's total anarchy for one night. You know, everything is legal. Nothing is off limits. And those movies, yeah, you teenagers probably like The Purge better than The Walking Dead. That's anarchy, guys. That's not all cool and fun games, you know. That's trying to live through the night. You wouldn't like anarchy. Without laws and the importance of obeying laws, we wouldn't have, you know, a society with structure to it. You'd have anarchy, and that's not a good way for any human beings to try to work together and survive in life. So that's why obeying laws is very important. And there's a little quote here. Remember this from earlier in the year. It's important to realize the wishes of the majority in a democracy. You have to be able to do that. The election, you know, we have, probably can't see it up on my wall up there. Let's see, turning around. You can't see President Biden's picture up there, but he's up there beside Trump as our 46th president of the United States. And, you know, West Virginia was a diehard Trump state, voted Trump rather easily in the election last fall. But, you know, the majority of Americans and the majority of the Electoral College voted for somebody else, Joe Biden. It's important for us as human beings in a democracy to recognize the wishes of the majority. It's hard to do sometimes. It's like in sports. It's like in sports when you have to shake hands with a team that beats you. It's like, it really stinks. You don't want to do it, but you got to, because you have to have sportsmanship. You have to shake their hand. You just have to do it. It's the hardest thing to do in sports, but it's something you got to do. So why is obeying laws important? You don't want anarchy. Teenagers think they do. No, you don't. All right, so EQ3 right here has been partially erased. Let me get it back here for us. I don't know how that happened. EQ3. What roles do the courts play in the United States? Well, here's some things, some bullet points about what court system do. Not just the United States Supreme Court, but our civil court and our criminal courts. Well, first of all is the civil court part. You know, courts are here, you know, this is why the court system has been placed. This is why the judicial branch is in our Constitution, is because, number one, they can help settle disputes, civil disputes over money and property. They're also placed in there to enforce laws fairly upon all people. And Amendment 5 spends a lot of time, as you already know, protecting the rights of an accused person. An accused person must be given a fair public trial. And that trial is to be held in a court of law, not in a church, not on the street, not out by a bonfire, not in the woods. This trial has to be held in a court of law. And of course, in America, an accused person is always innocent until proven guilty. Always. Now, EQ4 says, well, what rights are included in a fair trial? You talked about a fair trial, Coach. Well, what is it? You do have a right to a lawyer. If you can't afford one, the state will provide you one. You do have the right to be released on bail, depending on the seriousness of the crime you're accused of. If you have gruesomely murdered 15 little kids, then they're going to deny you bail based on the seriousness of your crime. But for the most part, you do have the right to be released on bail. And part of the steps in Amendment 5 that you have to follow is that you have the right to be indicted by a grand jury. Remember, a grand jury is not a trial jury. They just look at your case and decide if there's enough evidence to even go to trial to begin with. So you must be indicted by a grand jury first, then your case is going to trial. You are also innocent until proven guilty in America. You have the right to a jury trial, and you have the right to appeal your decision, the court's decision. That doesn't mean that you can get it changed, but you have the right to look into that, and we're going to define that in just a moment. Let's look at some of our vocabulary words. That word right there, number one, is a precedent, not president. It's a precedent, and it means an earlier decision by a court. So let's just say that someone else in school here, I don't know, let's say that Amy Lopatron has her purse searched and they find some heroin in it. And they throw the book at her and she's, expelled and goes to juvenile detention centers and all of that stuff. But let's just say that her lawyers try to do the same thing that Mattie Berry and TLO's lawyers did, that it was an illegal search. But the court system will look back, and they look at a precedent set, and they will go all the way back to TLO versus New Jersey, 1985, and they will look at that case and look at the Supreme Court's ruling, and then they will use that and apply it to Emmy Lopatron's case and say, hey, look, in 1985, a similar thing happened. The schools do not have to have a search warrant. They just have to have probable cause. So they look at a precedent, an earlier decision. Now, there's two types of laws here, administrative laws and constitutional laws. Administrative laws are laws created by government agencies like our state legislature, like our, Congress. For example, our state legislature votes to have the...
Ms. Del Graham, we need you to please report to the office or file the office. Ms. Del Graham, please file the office.
Let's say that our state legislature passes a law that says, hang on, they got this intercom on. Let me get it off. Hang on. They got it. Yes. Let's say that our state legislature, makes a law. They're tired of wrecks on our roads, and they make a law that the statewide speed limit on these interstates is going to drop back down to 55 from 65 anymore, and that would be an example of an administrative law. But now constitutional laws are laws that are based on the rights given to us in our Constitution, based on the amendments that we've learned about. So that's the difference between administrative laws and constitutional laws. Now, a petit jury, I know all of you think of Mr. Pettit. It's actually spelled different than his name. But a petit jury is different than a grand jury. A grand jury is only looking at, does your case have enough evidence to go to trial to begin with? But your petit jury is your actual trial jury. These are the guys that determine guilt and innocence. For example, in 1990, 91 there, the first year I was married, 1990, my wife was on the petit jury for that murder trial in Cabell County. She wasn't on the grand jury, she was on the petit jury. Petit jury is your actual trial jury. In fact, A quick way of remembering it, who makes the decisions and verdicts for our school? Mr. Pettit, our principal. So Pettit jury makes the decision, guilty or not. Good way of remembering it. Now, this next word is pretty funny. It's hard for me to say. Whenever I say that word, I always sound like a Jeep trying to start up in the morning. I'm going to try it. You ready? Jurors. Don't laugh at me, Madison Oiler. When I see you, I'm going to make you say this word. Jurors. I think maybe I should take the West Virginia hick talk and go, jurors. Yeah, there we go, jurors. We'll just make it one syllable. Jurors. There are people that serve on a jury, obviously. At jury duty, this is when you are ordered to serve on a jury. You're going to be one of those jurors. Oh, gosh. Which, by the way, if you're ever called for jury duty to serve, you can't ignore that. That's a subpoena to show up in court for jury duty. You can't ignore that. It won't go away. You must show up. A verdict, of course, is a jury's decision. In the case with my wife, their decision was guilty of murder, first degree, for Fred. But his sentence was life in prison with the possibility of parole. And a hung jury happens when a jury can't reach a verdict. This was what my wife and the other jurors on that case were trying to keep from happening, because if you have a hung jury and the jury cannot reach a verdict, then they have to do the trial all over again. Counties hate when this happens because then it's a retrial, it's more money, more expense, it wastes taxpayers' money. A hung jury is not good. So you don't ever want a hung jury. Appeal. Your right to an appeal is to ask for a review of the court's decision. Basically, you're looking into were your rights violated anywhere during this case, were your constitutional rights violated anywhere in this case, and it's asking for a review of the lower court's decision. Testimony is evidence by witnesses in court. Maybe you've been called to give testimony in court before. I had to give testimony in a civil court issue before, but not a criminal court issue. Some of you have maybe given testimony in a civil court issue of custody battle cases, maybe with parents. But testimony is any evidence by witnesses in a court. And our last word is cross-examine. This is when the witness is questioned by lawyers in court, which is always the cool thing about all of the criminal law shows, is when the prosecuting and attorneys and the defense attorneys get to cross-examine and question the witnesses while they're on the witness stand. So that's the last one of our notes. So until then, look for the Lesson 4 assignments in your folder. There'll be a couple of things for you guys to work on. They'll be in the Lesson 4 assignment, and I'll see you at school. Sorry this video was so long. Coach Eads, peace out.